I think Star Trek Lower Decks should check up on a planet. TNG forgot Star Trek Lower Decks should pay a visit to this forgotten planet from Star Trek The Next Generation. Under the command of Captain Carol Freeman, Don Lewis, the USS Cerritos specializes in missions of second contact, following up on the planets previously visited by ships like the USS Enterprise D. On TNG, for example, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, and his crew would routinely encounter new planets that were never revisited on the show. The idea of Starfleet ships that perform second contact missions makes perfect sense, as Picard would sometimes mention that the Federation would be sending representatives after the Enterprise left. As a staunch believer in the Prime Directive, Captain Picard did not interfere unless he felt it was absolutely necessary, and he usually left planets better off than when he found them. While I enjoyed the episodic nature of Star Trek The Next Generation, there were several planets introduced over the series that I would have loved to revisit. Star Trek Lower Decks now has that chance, and has already mentioned numerous planets from Star Trek The Next Generation, including the infamous Angel one. But there is one planet from TNG that deserves to be revisited, as its fate was left up in the air. Star Trek Lower Decks should revisit Angosia 3 from TNG's The Hunted in Star Trek The Next Generation Season 3, Episode 11, The Hunted. Captain Picard and the USS Enterprise to visit the planet Angosia 3, which has petitioned for entry into the Federation. Picard meets with the planet's leader, Prime Minister Narok, James Cromwell, and things seem to be going well until an infamous criminal named Roga Dinar, Jeff McCarthy, escapes from a nearby prison. Picard and the Enterprise crew help apprehend the prisoner only to learn that he is a genetically enhanced soldier who was abandoned by his people after the war. After Dinar escapes custody yet again, he breaks out some of his fellow prisoners, and they storm the Angosian capital. Narok asks Picard to help him stop the insurrection, but Picard responds that he cannot interfere. In the end, Picard and his crew leave Angosia, with the planet's leaders and the former soldiers still in the standoff. While the episode suggests that Narok should negotiate with the prisoners to avoid bloodshed, there is no indication that this happens. Angosia 3 was never mentioned again, but I would love to know what became of this planet and whether they helped these former soldiers reintegrate into their society. Former soldier Roga Dinar was mentioned on Star Trek Lower Decks. Although the fate of Angosia 3 remains unknown, Roga Dinar was brought up in an episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. In Lower Decks Season 1, Episode 8, Veritas, Ensign Brad Boimler, Jack Quaid, mentions Dinar when Ensign Beckett Mariner, Tawny Newsome, asks him about the all-time biggest badass. When Mariner responds that no one has heard of Dinar, Boimler insists that everyone knows him because he totally outsmarted Picard and he has amazing hair. While I enjoy when Lower Decks references obscure characters from previous Star Trek shows, Dinar is one I would actually like to learn more about. I would love for the Cerritos to check up on Angosia 3 and find Dinar possibly in a position of authority on the planet. Not only did Dinar single-handedly escape from the Enterprise D, but his backstory as a soldier would make a compelling story. The Hunted does not reveal much about the war that led the Angosians to create genetically enhanced soldiers or how they plan to help them after Picard's visit. Unfortunately, Star Trek Lower Decks' upcoming 5th season will be the show's last, and if Angosia 3 doesn't pop up, I hope a future Trek project revisits this Star Trek The Next Generation planet. I think Star Trek Lower Decks should check up on a planet TNG forgot. Star Trek Lower Decks has been a delightful addition to the Star Trek universe, blending the franchise's love for exploration, humor, and character growth with a meta-awareness that pokes fun at its long and storied history. The show, with its irreverent yet loving take on Starfleet, provides a perfect platform to revisit and explore loose threads from previous Star Trek series, especially Star Trek The Next Generation, TNG. Among the many planets and societies introduced in TNG, there are several that could use a follow-up, but none more so than the planet of Angosia 3, which made its first appearance in the TNG episode The Hunted. For those unfamiliar, Angosia 3 is a planet introduced during TNG's 3rd season. The episode follows Captain Picard and the crew of the USS Enterprise D as they encounter an advanced society that has applied for Federation membership. However, as the episode unfolds, the crew discovers that Angosia has a dark secret. During a war, the government genetically modified and psychologically enhanced soldiers to be perfect killing machines. When the war ended, the Ngosian government refused to reintegrate these veterans into society, instead exiling them to a penal colony. The episode explores themes of post-traumatic stress, governmental responsibility, and the moral implications of treating soldiers as tools to be discarded after their usefulness has ended. By the end of the episode, the genetically modified soldier, Roga Dinar, leads a rebellion against the Ngosian government. The Enterprise departs without resolving the conflict, leaving the planet in turmoil. While the episode's conclusion is poignant, it also leaves open a narrative thread that has never been followed up on. What became of Angosia 3? Did the veterans achieve justice? Was the government overthrown or reformed? Did the planet ever get its act together to reapply for Federation membership? Enter Star Trek Lower Decks. The animated series is known for its ability to blend serious Star Trek lore with irreverent humor, and this would be a perfect opportunity to revisit Angosia 3 in a way that could be both insightful and entertaining. The show's protagonist, Ensign Beckett Mariner, thrives in chaotic situations and has a well-established disdain for bureaucratic injustice. She would be the ideal character to bring fresh eyes and some much-needed snark to the situation on Angosia 3. Imagine an episode where the USS Cerritos is tasked with conducting a routine checkup on the Angosians, only to find the planet in a state of uneasy peace. Perhaps the veterans now control the government, but they struggle with maintaining stability in a society where the old elite still pull strings behind the scenes. Mariner, with her rebellious nature, could befriend the former soldiers, empathizing with their plight while criticizing Starfleet's initial handling of the situation. After all, the Enterprise crew simply left the planet without ensuring that any real solutions were implemented. This would be a prime opportunity for Lower Decks to humorously critique the often hands-off approach of Starfleet captains like Picard. The other characters could also play significant roles in the episode. Boimler, with his by-the-book mentality, might be horrified to discover that the Angosian government is still mired in corruption and injustice, forcing him to confront his blind faith in Starfleet's ability to solve problems neatly. Dendy and Rutherford, the show's science and engineering enthusiasts, could be fascinated by the genetic and cybernetic enhancements of the Angosian soldiers, leading to some fun interactions and ethical debates about the nature of enhancement and humanity. Their cheerful and curious attitudes could bring levity to an otherwise heavy topic, while still exploring important Star Trek themes. Moreover, the episode could feature an appearance by Roga Dinar himself. Perhaps he has become a reluctant leader, trying to balance the needs of his fellow veterans with the demands of running a government. Mariner's irreverence and refusal to respect authority could challenge Danner's more rigid sense of duty, leading to some interesting character dynamics. And in true Lower Decks fashion, this serious storyline could be interspersed with comedic moments, like the crew attempting to survive in the chaotic streets of an Angosian city or getting caught up in a veterans parade gone wrong. What makes Lower Decks so special is its ability to laugh at Star Trek's absurdities while still respecting the universe's core values and themes. Revisiting Angosia 3 through this lens would allow the show to tackle serious issues like veterans' rights, post-traumatic stress, and governmental accountability, but with the humor and lightheartedness that has become the show's hallmark. The Lower Decks team could both honor the legacy of TNG while poking fun at the sometimes overly idealistic and tidy resolutions offered by the older series.